Hi, this is Ed Keay-Smith from onlineimpact.com.au here with my host or co-host, depending on what day it is, Mr. Brendan Tully from the Search Engine Shop, and you're watching another episode of the Business Marketing Show. How are you, Mr. Brendan Tully?
I'm very well today, Ed. We should have little titles that go under the screen that, have our name and our title there.
Boss Man and Boss Man.
Like
both boss men. So thanks for tuning in wherever you are, day, night. We appreciate you listening or watching the show. February's off to an interesting start. As usual, Brendan and I have got lots going on. And there's always little things that pop up that we think this would be a good topic for a podcast. So today we're going to be talking about some of the options or choices you have when you're looking at any sort of pay-per-click advertising campaign. In particular, we'll probably be talking about Google and Facebook in those topics of paid advertising, in the sense of should you do it all yourself? Should you outsource someone to do it like an agency? Should you be getting help internally from the companies, from Google, from their ad account managers, etc.? Because there's lots of different ways you can do it, and everyone's going to be different. So we thought we'd run through a few options to see what will work best for you if you're listening or watching this. So the reason I came up with this, Brendan, there's been quite a lot of changes happening with Google Ads in the last, well, there's always changes happening with Google Ads. Let's be honest, it seems like it changes on a weekly basis. But in the last year, there's been a big update with their interface and their dashboard and how the campaigns work. And we could do a whole day seminar just on that. But there's quite a few things in there where there's some opt-out options that you have to be aware of in terms of things where they're making suggestions for ads and other things internally, and they make the suggestions for the changes within the Google AdWords campaign. And if you don't click opt out of that, then the changes they suggest automatically will go live in 14 days from when they've notified you. So by default, it is set to they make the recommendations and then 14 days after they change. So you can actually click another button to say no to the suggestions. And there's lots of other little things like that that are sneaking in that you've got to be aware of. And also Google is exceptionally heavy on having their agents contact you as the campaign owner to make recommendations to the campaign. And in my experience and in my opinion, quite often some of them are okay, some of them are technically okay, but a lot of them don't make any sense to the actual business because they don't really understand the business they're making the suggestions to. So I think you've got to be aware of things like that. So what have you found with your experience, with your side of doing ad campaigns for clients?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Have you come across any of these sorts of challenges? So before you answer that, let's go right back to the very start. I was getting too sidetracked in one subject there. So we'll go over, if someone does want to start a ad campaign and they're not already doing so, and they're starting afresh, the first option is learn how to do something like Google AdWords or Facebook ads. Immerse yourself in learning how to do that, and then go and open your account and set that up, and then start running your own ads. Now, the caveat to that is most people don't spend the time, in probably your experience and definitely in my experience, to learn how to do it properly. And that's when they make all the rookie mistakes, and then they say, Facebook ads don't work, Google ads don't work. And it technically wasn't either of those. It was that they didn't know what they were doing. Have you found that?
Yeah, I mean, so probably need to just be clear from the top. There's a conflict of interest, right, with these platforms and businesses. So the business owner wants the most out of it for the least cost. And
absolutely.
We want, as a business, you want leads or calls or emails or sales. And by advertising, you're effectively paying for those. So you've got a cost of acquisition there. Yeah, so you want that cost of acquisition to be the lowest possible, and you want the most for that. Whereas
Yeah.
the platform just wants the most. They just want all the money they can get. They don't care. Like their job is to make money, not to make you money. So I think there's a conflict of interest to begin with there, and there's also an issue. I think that Google particularly markets the AdWords platform as DIY. So
Yes.
and it's really not. It's not at all.
No, and the absolute truth of it is, even people like you and I struggle to keep up with the influx of changes that they make.
Yep.
It's constant. And now, if we were to rewind 15 years ago, 16 years ago, when we were sort of using the platform for the first time, the changes have been monumental in terms of what it is.
So going back to your original question, when back in 2004, 2005, when we had the e-commerce business, we made that exact mistake. We tried AdWords and we did it ourselves with no idea what we're doing, and it didn't work. Like we didn't know how to measure it to start with. There was also no Google Analytics then. It was called Urchin. I think it was 10 grand or 12 grand to get.
It was. Yeah, that was the yearly cost of it.
Yeah,
so,
and I remember we were talking about
just kicking my dog. My dog's snoring.
And then Google bought them, and it became free. But yeah, that was around about that time. We're like, oh, this AdWords stuff doesn't work. And now, like, I look back and like, idiots, such idiots. Like,
you don't know what you don't know. Look, if you've never used a hammer and a nail before, and you go to use it, and then you keep whacking your thumb and going, this hammer doesn't work. It's not the hammer. It's you don't know how to use the hammer to hit the nail in, and your thumb is the consequence. So in your case, losing the money or not having it work was that, and you've got to spend a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's very complex, and the complexity drills down further and further. The bigger your budget, the more complex the campaigns become because there's more nuance to them. And we were talking before the call, like even things like gender of who you're targeting, even in search, makes a difference. So
yeah, and just how you write your ad, you can have just a small tweak in an ad that can make a big difference in the click-through rate of the ads. So there's all these little things, and most people who are, unless you've got a dedicated full-time ad campaign manager in your company, you're not going to get it done properly. So we've got a team of people that work on this sort of stuff as you do, and there's more people you need, the more complex it is that you're getting to manage it. So I would say absolutely. I always recommend to clients it's good to have a general understanding of how it works. So it's good to educate yourself, do a course. You can go on Udemy and do some really excellent Google AdWords campaign courses for $50, that are really in depth, like, 15, 20 hours worth of training. So at least if you are dealing with an agency, you'll have some idea of what they're doing, whether it's correct or not.
I think it's important to understand the strategy and some of the terminology and numbers. I think Perry Marshall's 80-20 marketing book is a good start.
Yep, totally.
He talks a lot about the cost of acquisition or the cost of acquiring a customer. And, he has examples there. And he talks about the model where if the lifetime value or the LTV of a customer is high enough, you can afford to lose money on that first transaction. So you can pay more than if you have a higher customer lifetime value than a competitor, then in theory, you can afford to lose money on the first transaction and still make money over the long term and pay more for ads than competitors and in a sense drown them out. But these are, a lot of business owners focus on the keywords and how to do it as opposed to these are the numbers I need to make it work. This is our goal. This is our budget for it. A lot of people don't have a marketing budget and don't set the goals for a marketing campaign. I think those are a smarter place to start. Like on paper, what does the advertising campaign look like? You're paying to acquire customers, basically. So unless you know how much you can afford to pay for each customer, you're probably going to be guessing to a degree.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a really good tool that you and I both have, and I've been experimenting with it a bit more than you at the moment, I think, called Geru, Geru.com is the web address you can go to, Geru.com. And it's basically a forecasting advertising funnel building model tool, which is awesome and does all sorts of calculations for you to help you sort of predict different scenarios. Like if you were spending this much money per click and you got this many visitors with this conversion percentage, whether it's going to be a profitable exercise or not. So you can often forecast these things out before you even go down the path of doing it, to get some idea of what all those need to be. So I can't spend more than $1 per click. I need to get a minimum 1,000 clicks a week or a month or whatever the scenario is. And if I don't get more than a 3% conversion rate on the website, I'm not going to make any money. So all these sorts of things, you can have some idea before you get started. It doesn't mean that that's exactly how it's going to work out, but you can sort of model it fairly closely. So I recommend going and checking that out. There's always updates to that software they're working on at the moment. They're in version 2, but I'm enjoying using it. That was a side note. So yeah, learn how to do it if you want to do it. But I always suggest, rather than jumping in and trying to do 50 different campaigns for all your products or all your services, whatever the scenario is, pick 1 or 2 things that are core to you that you know convert well already, that you know you're selling a lot of, whatever it is, and do a couple of experimental campaigns on those. Because if you can't get those to work, trust me, you're not going to get the difficult ones that don't convert to work any easier on Google Ads or Facebook. Mm-hmm. So try that first, experiment on a couple. So anything else to add about doing it yourself? You've got to learn. You've got to study up before you jump in.
Yeah, I mean, starting with that 80-20 marketing book would be my advice, because that'll teach you the fundamental numbers. It doesn't talk about the tool. It talks about the numbers that make basically any advertising marketing channel work. And I know when it was many years before I learned some of those terms, or understood the meaning of lifetime value of a customer, customer acquisition, and some of those important numbers. So
but it certainly does come down to he or she who can afford to pay the most to acquire a customer wins, in a nutshell. So anyway, that's good. So that's we're talking principles there. So read the book, the 80-20 Principles Sales and Marketing, Perry Marshall. We'll put a link to it in the show notes. So that's the do-it-yourself model. Then there is what I would classify as the do-it-yourself model with help internally from someone like an account manager from Facebook or Google, which can be fraught with challenges. In my experience and in my opinion, they are typically knowledgeable about a lot of the mechanics. Like you need to click this, you need to turn that on. And their experience can be quite helpful because they're getting schooled up regularly on the interface itself. Because even that sometimes I will have a challenge with, and I've got to speak to a Google rep to find out that, well, the latest change now, they've moved this to there, and you've got to turn that button on. It's like the amount of updates they'd have to do to tell you that all these things are happening. All you'd be doing is reading updates. So sometimes it's only when you sort of hit the wall, you go, okay, hang on, what's changed here? Because and if you're getting in there, you'll experience this. So they're very good for that. But quite often I've found they can make recommendations to ads or recommend keyword terms or certain things that just don't make any sense based on what the business is, the locality of the business, which shows that they don't have the understanding of the marketplace that the potential customer is working in. Have you found that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess this goes back to just the point we were mentioning before about a couple of podcasts ago. We talked about we did the slides we had, and you remember the triangle, the pyramid. Where at the bottom there's the fundamentals and rules of the game. We have the strategy layer, and then the tactics at the top. Like those guys are very good at the tactics and the technical and the playing with the interface, but they don't understand your strategy. And like you're saying, they can make changes that just totally blow the strategy up, that don't make sense. They don't understand. They're not working in a context, right? They don't have the context of your business, the strategy, or anything. They're just like looking at, let's turn this switch or toggle. So
and the other challenge is that often what happens is you'll get Joe or Mary, who are your, inverted commas here, your account manager, and then you go to speak to that person again a week later, and they've moved on, they're in a different department, or you get handballed to somebody else. So you don't have any consistency of conversation. So then you're back. It's a bit like phoning up a telco when you've got internet connection problems or various things. You end up having to say the same story 15 times, which just gets really, really frustrating, and you want to pull your hair out. And it doesn't look like I've got a lot of hair. It's all shaved off, but I've got a decent set of hair there. If I let it grow to be like yours, Brendan. Anyway, but it looks like I've been pulling my hair out speaking to different people. But on a side rant, so consistency and continuity of the conversation are important. Whereas when you're dealing with an agency, hopefully, like someone like us, you're going to get the same person to have the same pickup conversation where you left off about whatever challenge you've got or something you want to test. So that's, I think, probably the biggest disadvantage. And they phone you a lot is the other disadvantage. Oh my God. And even though when you say, please don't
let it out,
don't phone us every day. We don't need to speak to you every day or every week. The same thing happens. It's a different person. So the person who's new who comes in goes, oh, these are my client contact list. I'm just going to phone them all. So no, I had to talk to Joe about a week ago. And right. So this happens a lot. And the challenge is often, particularly if you're in Australia, a lot of the call center calls come from places like India. And most people, unfortunately, in Australia have had cold call experiences, typically a lot with people from India. So there's that automatic switch off that they have. So often when you're getting a call from them, a lot of the clients don't even want to take them. I get people calling me all the time who are clients who've had good calls from Google and various places, and they say, is that real, or is that someone trying to scam me? So you have all these conversations you've then having with clients as well, who think because it's a call center and because someone's calling from India, that's potentially a scam. And it's not, if it's someone calling from Google. But often often there are other companies who are calling, and this is not against Google. There's often other companies who are pay-per-click advertising companies who are trying to pick up the business of these people. And that often we've had ones where they say they're from Google and they're actually not from Google. So before you actually tell anything to anybody, if you are listening to this and this is the scenario, clarify who they are, get an official email from them, a callback phone number, all that sort of stuff. Whatever you do, don't hand out login details. Or we've had this happen. A client's handed over login details to somebody pay-per-click company that was just doing cold calls, and they gave them access to their account. And it's like, oh my God, no. So be aware, be cautious, and always do your due diligence in checking who the person is that's calling you, because there's a lot of dodgy people calling out there.
Yeah.
Whew, it feels better now. I've got that off my chest. Thanks. This is my weekly therapy call with Brendan.
You're welcome.
He's choking on his coffee or his cocoa or his tea. It's probably chai tea. Chai tea, Brendan?
How much coffee have you had today? Have you had a lot of coffee?
I've had two.
Very energized.
Yeah, I'm very energized. Yeah, that's it. It's just one of those subjects. Okay, so that was number 2. What's number 3?
Number 3, working with an agency.
Who wants to do that? Who wants to work with someone like you and me? I mean, look at us. Who the heck?
You could do it in-house as well. Is that a number 4? Is that a number 3?
In-house, as in...
You have someone on your team who's...
Well, that's technically, that would be another one. The first option we gave was really just a person managing it themselves within their business. So that could be option number 4. So we'll get to that. So option number 3 is definitely hiring an agency. And that, again, comes with pros and cons. It's a good advantage if you potentially know the agency. It doesn't really matter whether they're local or not, because Brendan and I both do a lot of work for companies that are not where we are. So
it's all happening over the internet regardless, right?
It is, exactly. And we can do things like this, have a Zoom meeting or a Skype meeting, so they're getting to see the person. So it's not like some blank face. But that being said, I for the first probably, I don't know, 12 years or so using Skype, we only ever just did audio calls. We weren't really doing video much, just because of the lag and various challenges with that. So, yeah, so that's an option. But find a good agency, get recommendations. We're happy to recommend you to us.
And I mean, agencies is I mean, people think, oh, it's expensive, but not really. You'll be spending 10 to 20% of the ad spend.
Yeah.
You need to manage it properly. They're accountable for it. They know that. So that, and this is, the comparison between hiring someone in-house, doing it yourself, or an agency. The benefit an agency has is they have lots of different accounts that they can learn from or see a tactic that's working. I know we have so many tactics that we use it across. We learn on one account and we're like, well, we can do that on everything.
Yeah.
Tweak or change or wording or whatever it is.
Definitely. And an agency often can imply that it's a big entity, but an agency can be small. It can be 2 or 3 people. It could be a team of 30 people. It could be a team of 300 people. So, there's variations. So you pick a team size that works best for you. It's good to know how long the people that you'll be dealing directly with, because often you may have someone who is your first point of contact, who's a salesperson for the agency, who is not going to be the person you deal with on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. You'll have an internal person. So it's good to get to know who that person is, how long they've been with the agency, what their specialties are, and if you like them, because if you don't gel with the person you're working with, it can be very difficult. So often there's not a good fit between people. And we've had that with our guys. Sometimes one person isn't the right person to deal. There's just the stars don't align. There's some personality clash, whatever it is. So you've got to adjust and reset and sort that sort of stuff out. So, there's always going to be those sorts of challenges with agencies as well. But of course, the money you're paying an agency is coming off the bottom line. But if they can make improvements that increase your percentage conversions and you're well and truly covering your costs and your return is higher because of it, then it's a no-brainer.
Well, most of the time an agency, like a lot of people think an agency is expensive, but it's a lot cheaper than having a body in your office. If you hire a full-time person, sit in your office and do it, they're not commercially motivated to start with. They've got 40 hours a week to burn, so they're going to take their time. And they're salaried, so whether or not they perform or not, they still get paid at the end of the day. And you have to manage them. Like, do you know how to manage them? Like, if you think it's hard managing an agency, try and manage someone sitting in your office where you have to work out what they're going to do on top of everything else.
Was that a segue to number 4, was it?
Well, I guess so. I mean, I used to see this back in the IT days where people would hire internal IT staff, and it just makes sense because they had no idea what this person was supposed to be doing. They had no context in which to manage them. And it just, it doesn't make sense. Like it's cheaper to get a company to do it than just hiring bodies and have them sit at a desk. And a lot of it is like just psychology, like this, getting, focusing on the deliverables instead of, hey, I want to see what this person's doing. There's a lot of focus on how much time are you spending in my account. Well, that's irrelevant. It's really, the performance. Like, are you getting the performance? Are you spending less to acquire customers and make a profit?
Absolutely. Right? Yeah, that's a secondary thing. The time stamp tracking. I think the proof is in the eating. If they're actually getting everything done and the results are there, then it's fantastic. Yeah. That something happened there.
Oh, I think my microphone just...
Yeah, I think your microphone just popped out.
Busted it. I moved.
Okay. Brendan, are you back? Keep talking.
Yeah. I've got all these. So I have a new Mac and I have all these dongles that are hanging around and like they're so...
It's terrible. It's terrible. How new is your Mac? Is it like brand new?
Oh, a year old?
Oh, okay. When the yeah, I know the one. Yeah, when they changed it all just to UFC
3.
So USB 3, not US. I'm thinking of fighting. Sorry, sidetrack there.
Dongles for everything. Dongles all around.
It's terrible. If you forget your dongle, you're in trouble. So I think option 4 would be an extreme, and I've seen this happen multiple times, because to get anyone who's a decent campaign manager full-time, you're going to be paying them bare bones 70 plus grand. And they're, and ones who are really on top of their game, they're getting 100, 120, 150. Plus bonuses, plus everything else. So to bring someone on board, you've got to look, okay, well, an agency is going to cost me 2, 3, 5 grand. So you're still ahead paying an agency to do stuff. Obviously, I can't say that with an unbiased way because we're an agency, but that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Feel free to experiment, hire someone and go through it. I have seen it so many times that they've taken someone on, they've had them for 6 or 12 months, didn't work out, and then they go back to using an agency. So it's challenging.
Yeah. I mean, if you don't know the numbers to manage the people by, then
it's all numbers, mate. All of this is numbers, just in case you haven't picked that up yet. This is all numbers. Everything is statistical, and people who don't like statistical stuff and tracking data shouldn't be even attempting to do this stuff. That's the cold, hard fact. Forget everything else we said. If you don't want or don't like dealing with numbers, don't even attempt to do it yourself. You have to get an agency to do it, or you've got to employ someone who's good at it. But don't waste your time trying to do it yourself, because it'll do your head in. Because you're always looking at numbers.
Yeah, and it's detail work too. You need to be detail oriented. Where one character or one letter can be the difference between making and breaking a campaign. That fine level of detail is important.
So we'd like to hear your feedback in the comments. Feel free to give us some examples of stories, good or bad or indifferent. Only good ones about Brendan and I, if you happen to be clients, please. No terrible ones. Only joking. Say whatever you like. We don't care, do we, Brendan? Thick skin. Say bad things about Brendan if you really need to.
Today, mate.
Oh, full of bravado. It's a full moon. I think that's what it is. I think my werewolf in me is coming out. Oh, sorry, all you guys listening.
What did you say? Inner clown. Is that what you said?
My inner clown, actually. Yeah, inner clown, inner werewolf. Dear, oh dear. What can I say? I'm a drummer. I'm always going to be this way. It's how I am. So what else to finish up? We've been nattering on for a little while.
Well, I mean, really know your numbers. Have a marketing budget.
Yep.
I think that's a big one. Actually having a budget.
Yeah. And start off small. Test things in a small way before you go big. Don't try and eat the whole cake. Have a slice first.
Yeah.
It's a terrible
The budget is always an interesting question. That's one of my first questions to clients or prospective clients. What's the budget? Because it's kind of like, well, if you have a budget or a rough number, then you've done some work there. If you don't have no budget, then you haven't really done the numbers. Like it's always like, what should I spend? Well, I don't really know. Like we can tell you what it's going to cost, but whether or not that makes sense from the other end is a different story. So
too true. Well, we are only a phone call or an email away. Let us know if you need a hand with something, but feel free to experiment, but just go in with eyes open and be prepared.
I mean, advertising works, right? Like the stuff works. So many times we've heard hey, Google Ads doesn't work. Well, it doesn't work for some businesses, but for 95% of them, it does. So.
Yeah, and typically it's not the platform that doesn't work. It's the implementation of the platform that isn't working. So if you do the right things and reduce your risk and know your numbers and know your strategy before you go into it, you're going to have an increased chance of success. Like anything in life, really. On that note, Brendan, thank you for your time again. We'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you for listening and watching, and we'll see you on the next show. Bye for now.
Bye.
See you there.